Frankie.
Ian, you tardy son of a bitch.
Frank, since I do so much work around here and I'm largely carrying this production, I want to be promoted. I would like to go from co-host to CEO of Let Me Speak to a Manager. I demand a new title.
I believe you've already got it, buddy.
And I want to raise.
Yes, our profitable venture here.
I would like to make more than losing thousands of dollars a year on this production. Could you promote me, please?
For sure.
I'm changing my business card. I'm gonna update our docs that we never signed.
I'm CEO, bitch.
Yes, I'm going Zuckerberg style. I want all of our followers to know from now on I am the CEO of Let Me Speak to a Manager podcast. Don't forget.
Incredible.
Stop eating. Frank is actually the CEO of Let Me Speak to a Manager. Also, he is the chief eating officer because he can't get through an episode without shoving his face with food, which is, I'm sure, very exciting for all of our listeners.
It's 1:14 p.m. I'm famished.
My God.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Mathews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
You can't say God on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So this episode is titled, Are You Positioned for the Next Promotion? And
if you're curious, Ian is not.
I just promoted myself, so I just showed all of you how it's done. Boom. The most people think that there is a very organized and complicated process that companies go through when they fill positions, when they promote people. And the truth is, it's a lot more political than you might think. When I say political, it's not so much friends. It's less structured, less organized, and it's more of a feel that most companies go through than a very organized and analytic process of who is going to get tapped for the next big job. And often the promotion you may be seeking might not even be a position that the company has today. It might be a position that needs to get created just for you to get promoted. And so it's a lot more, I think getting a promotion, and this is something I've done quite a bit, and I've had to promote a lot of people. It is a very active process that takes a long time. And it's one that you have to put a lot more thought into than just doing a good job and hoping for the best.
So I think there's some steps to becoming promoted, right? Like, first of all, you need to be very competent at what you do. You need to be someone who is more of a conduit than a blocker, and you need to be liked. So that's the political side. Like, if you're not liked, people aren't going to promote you because they don't want to work with someone who's a son of a bitch they don't care about, right? So, like, those are the things that I think you must have. You have to have competency in the job, and you don't need to be the best at the job, but you need to have some level of understanding so you can actually teach, train it, say if someone's on or off track. You need to have the ability to have information flow through you. That's what being a conduit is. And you need to have people around you who like you, who want to be in meetings with you, that have the belief in you. You're kind of picking your foxhole buddies when you're getting promoted. And if people don't want you there, there's a high probability you're never going to get promoted.
So we're going to go through a number of steps and things to think about if you are interested in getting promoted in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And questions that you should really ask yourself. And I think the first thing I want to say is an error that I see a lot of people make is they sort of assume that their work is speaking for itself. They're quietly going about their job, doing a great job, and putting in the time, and they have been loyal to the company, and they get good results on a regular basis, and think that that is enough, that some level of hierarchy above them sees it, knows it, and is absolutely going to reward them for it. And I can tell you that that's just not enough, being a good, quiet worker, because being good at your job doesn't necessarily mean you'll be good at the next job. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you want the next job. So I think a lot of times folks that make this assumption that their work is speaking for themselves, they get very frustrated because they don't even get an opportunity to interview. They just get an email on a Monday saying so-and-so has been promoted to this position, and no one even called them or interviewed them. And then they're frustrated and they go to their boss and say, how did this happen? Why was there not a panel? Why didn't I get the opportunity? And their boss is completely shocked. You've never said a word about wanting to be promoted. I thought you were happy. And I've seen this play out over and over the years.
So I would think what happens in a lot of instances, you're either on the inside or you're on the outside. And in some instances, it really does come down to being liked. Communicating it is one thing, but there's something there. Like, when was the first, like, how old were you when you were promoted for the first time, and how did it happen?
I was probably 24 years old when I got my first management job. I sort of knew I was going to get the job because I had been given a series of initiatives to lead. I could see that I was starting to get tapped a little bit by my manager. If he was on vacation, he would ask me to run his Friday sales call. We hired a bunch of interns for the first time, and he asked me to go hire them. So he sent me to college to go hire those folks. And then he said, they report to you. Even though I didn't get a change in title, I didn't get any extra pay for that. He just was giving me projects to run, initiatives to run. And they were very visible projects where he was making sure the rest of the team saw that he was giving me more responsibility. So when it came down to when I got the title, he just kind of announced it, and everyone was like, yeah, of course. We kind of saw that one coming. No one got blindsided.
So what I was hoping you were going to say is it kind of happened when you were still in college, right? Because you went to GE out of college, and like, what was the name of weren't you in kind of like a curriculum, or there was like a track, right? What was a track? When I
left college to join GE.
Yeah, you were like the management track, right? And that was like the whole thing.
Yeah, it was a leadership program that I was on, but that didn't guarantee you any. Once you got off the program, you had to be good in sales, and then. But
the point is this: you started off with a trajectory of promotion. If you're on a leadership track, that's where you got hired, right? Yeah. You didn't get hired as a janitor or like a cafeteria worker. You got hired coming out of college, knowing that I'm in the track of being promoted. You're in a leadership track. Like, there's a lot of exit ramps between entry level and CEO that you can get off on, but you know that initially, right? So we're speaking to people who want to be promoted. The first thing is make sure you're in a track or you're on a trajectory where there's promotion. That's first and foremost. When I left college and started my first job, I was in a similar position as Ian. I was on a trajectory of promotion. So the first place to start is to know that there is an upward mobility to where you're going. The company has thought about it. You're identified as one of those people. Like, start the dialogue early. I think that's critical as everything starts. Like, what they used the term for me was there's a ladder. Like, you start the bottom rung of the ladder and you can work your way up the ladder, and then there's splits in the ladder. So I think that's really important, is where are you starting? Like, as a silly example, if you work 50 hours a week at McDonald's, there's only so much you can do there. But if you work at, X number of hours at a publicly traded company, there's many more paths to promotion and riches and enrichment.
So I love that. The second point we're going to talk about, and I'll stay on this leadership track that I was on, but the second point I want to make is think of yourself as the marketing vice president of you. So if you were with a startup company, let's say you created a startup company, you created a product, a new a new restaurant. It doesn't matter how good your food is if no one knows about it, if you're not telling anyone about it. The whole concept of marketing is drawing awareness to a product or a company. Think about yourself as the product. You could be the best in the world at what you're doing, but if no one knows about it and you're not sharing enough, you're not going to go anywhere. So think of yourself as a marketing VP. Are you likable? Are you accountable? Do people know the value you bring to the organization? Are you visible? You have to be a marketer with a megaphone, letting people know I add a lot of value and I aspire to do more. And I'll give you an example. So Frankie, that leadership program I was on, I was told when I was hired out of Purdue that you will go to 4 different cities and you will have no say in where you go. So right out of college, I went straight to Atlanta. I was not given any say in going to Atlanta. That's where I was going. Next, I was told I was going to go to Salem, Virginia. And I wanted to go to Chicago. And I didn't know anyone in the GE office in Chicago because I was already in Atlanta. So I started calling everyone in the Chicago office. I asked everyone that I was meeting, who do you know in Chicago? And I started learning all of those managers. When we had sales events, I would go meet the Chicago people. And I let them all know my girlfriend lives in Chicago. My friends live in Chicago. I'm from the Midwest. I'm a Michigan guy. I'm not an Atlanta guy. My friends who graduated from Purdue live in Chicago. I would love to be there. And by the way, not just what I want, I'm really damn good. I'm an awesome salesperson. I would add value if you got me. If another city gets Ian Mathews, you are going to regret it. I was almost like an NFL prospect, going into the draft, letting people know you don't want to pass on me when it's your turn to draft. I went out of my way to let everyone in Chicago know who I was, what I was capable of, and how badly I wanted to be in their city. I didn't just hope my manager would square me up, because he wouldn't have if I wouldn't have done that. And I ended up in Chicago because I had a bunch of advocates that I had sold like crazy. I acted like my own marketing VP.
So a lot of people, when they're young in their careers, what they worry about is like what other people are going to think about them. And it's like some scarlet letter of, I want to be promoted, right? I don't know if scarlet letter is prescribed reading anymore, but like it's a red mark or a black mark against your career of like, I want to be promoted, or I have desires past what I'm doing here. And what you should really understand is this. We've talked about one of our favorite mentors multiple times in one of our last episodes, right? Like Ian and I both have a great deal of respect for different mentors we have, but especially one that we had as like a common mentor. And I remember being very intimidated by this same person. And what I realized was he was once in his low 20s. He was once on the bottom of the rung. He wanted to get promoted too. So what you start to realize is like, it's not a bad word, or it's not a mark against you that you have desire or want for more. That's okay. So that's the first step. Every single person who is a manager has most likely gotten promoted to be there. So they respect the hustle. They understand who it is, what you are, and what you're looking for. And what you'll see in great management is sometimes they're going to say, hey, slow down a little bit. You're not ready for this. Work on these things. And that comes into development, which we'll talk about. So that's part of it. And what Ian was saying about the NFL draft is, I disagree. It's not the NFL draft. You're a free agent. You're already in the league. And what you were doing is saying, hey, I'm on a 1-year contract here. For my next assignment, I'm a damn good cornerback. I don't want to be playing in Michigan. I want to move here. Because, and then that's what it is. You see it a lot with sports stars, and especially in the NBA, people move. That's what you're doing. You're positioning yourself. And it could be to move to a different city. It could be positioning yourself to move to a different role. That's okay. Having some type of selfishness around it's best for me to do these things is, I think, a really big step in being able to communicate it. Now, what's really tricky is not to just be a you person. I want to get promoted to Chicago because I've done these things in Atlanta that have bettered the organization and have benefited my boss. That is when you start getting people who want to fight and advocate for you.
Awesome literary reference by Frank to dropping Scarlet Letter there, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne in 1850. And that should still be required reading. And I understand I understand wholly what you're saying, though, in that I think some people are afraid to. I think what Frank is saying is some people are afraid to seem too ambitious. And ambition is not a problem as long as you are a performer. The people that annoy me in companies are the ones with high ambitions that aren't willing to put in the grind and aren't willing to put in the work. They just have expectations that they should be promoted, but they don't want to go do what it takes. I think the people that get promoted most often are the ones who are clear about their ambition and also demonstrate that they're willing to put in the extra work, right? It's one thing to come tell the head coach that you want to play shortstop. It's another thing to be the guy who comes to every practice early and stays late taking extra ground balls. It's two different things, right? Who gets results, but says that's the position that I want to do, and that's what I want to be. And I think to an extent on that, Frankie, some of getting promoted is not giving a damn what your peers think, because some of your peers are going to be annoyed that you show ambition. It's going to threaten. They're going to see you as a threat. I had to go through some of that when I was on this leadership program. Some of the guys were just cool with going through their 4 rotations in 6 months, and I wasn't. I was trying to get off, and it bothered them. It bothered them that I was ambitious, and I just didn't give a shit because they weren't going to be a part of my career. I was the one that had to manage my career.
And there's another side of it with peers, right? Like your peers are your peers. Like I was never focused on my peers. I was always focused on the people ahead of me. How do I get their attention? How do I do things in a way that they think they want me to be up there with them? And it was very quickly, like when I would get to that level, I'd be like, all right, who's next? And I start focusing on not only being great at this level, but wanting that next group of people to want me to be a part of that group. And that is how promotions happen very quickly. So when you talk about being the best, like go ahead and dive into that with like being the best.
Well, you got to be able to measure it. You can't just, that can't be an opinion. You have a peer set. For me, a minimum, if you want to get promoted, you don't have to be the best.
That's what I had the same note.
The best isn't always the best person for the next promotion. They might not want the next promotion. They might only be really good at that one skill and they don't have the skills to move up a step in there. But in my opinion, you can't be lousy. You can't be.
You need to be the top third. I think you need to be in the top third.
I think that's it. I was going to say top 25%, whatever it is. You have to be, if there's 12 of you doing the job, you should be top 3. You shouldn't be 6th or 7th. You should show that you are competent and willing to grind enough where you are one of the best at what you're doing. That gets you, that is like the minimum. So if you can't right now objectively say, I'm in the top 25% of my peer group, you probably shouldn't be asking for a promotion. That this whole nonsense of, well, I'm not real good at this job, but I'd be great at leading people doing it. That's bull. You're not going to get, if you get that job, the people that you are leading, they're not going to respect you because you're going to be telling them to get results that you didn't prove you could get yourself. So I think the bare minimum to be considered for promotion, are you one of the best doing what you can do, and can you prove it measurably?
The other thing is this, like, let's just say, so as an example, right? I got promoted through a home building company. I got promoted as a builder and I got promoted as a salesperson. As a builder, I wasn't technically as strong as people who've been doing the job for 30 years. And there was a couple of people in my division who were they were better than me. They've been doing it for 30 years. But what I was better at than them was being adaptable, being flexible. And I would go into communities that were shit shows. They wouldn't go into those communities because they were kind of like, they had earned the right not to. But you would go into these like startups and maybe you weren't as good as them, but you were really good at doing something that they were either no longer willing to do or no longer capable of doing because of age or just kind of like a being over it factor. So that's one way to distinguish yourself. When I got promoted as a salesperson, I had gone to 3 broken communities. Like I had a gravy train for like 50 days. And then I got yanked out of that place and moved into another community that stunk. And then that community stunk. I got it to work. 7-8 months later, I got yanked into another community that stunk. And what you start to realize is you don't necessarily it's kind of the same thing I said a second ago about construction. you're not being put into maybe the places where you're going to be the absolute best, but you're performing at an incredible level compared to what was there before. And when you're in the moment, you're like, damn, they keep shitting on me. This sucks. I don't like it. But that's what opportunity looks like. They're sticking you in these spots because they know you can take something bad and make it really good. That's what winning in management is. And that's what gives you the opportunity to kind of catapult forward.
And I think so Frank is saying he was a builder. So he was a project manager. He was managing multiple houses getting built at any one given time. And he wanted to move up to being a construction manager where he managed multiple project managers doing what he was doing. I can think of a couple of the project managers Frank was a peer of at the time because they were still there years later. And some of them were definitely better builders than Frank, but I'm thinking of two of them that could build more houses, do it on budget better, could handle more volume than Frank when he was younger. But what I can say is one of them was painfully introverted. He couldn't look you in the eyes. He could barely talk. I'm thinking of a couple of guys who used to get those gold jackets at the meetings. Really nice guy. All he wanted to do was build homes. And he was so introverted that if you'd have made him a manager of people, it would have been a disaster. It would have frustrated the people reporting to him. And the other one was the opposite. He was just irascible. He was just kind of a mean-spirited dude. And, you know, he was always complaining about the company. Every initiative, he fought it. Just because they built more homes and did them faster than Frank wouldn't make them better for a promotion. Frank was more malleable. He was more willing to jump on board with initiatives the company was doing. And he was really good with people. He was a good listener. He would make a better leader. So Frank's skill set, just because he wasn't number one at what he was doing, he had a better skill set that could grow him into the next role.
That's it. And what you have to focus on with that is you have to kind of realize your spot. So there was a year that there was 2 years where I sold. I think I did it for like almost 3, but there was 2 years where it was like the full years of me selling. And I was like in the top 3 to 5 in every statistical category in the market. But like if you looked at it on balance over 2 years, I was very near number one, but it just never lined up where I was the best, but I was very near the top. And I had just gotten there. There was people who had been there years before me, kind of like the builder example. So that's okay to not be absolutely the best. But if you're pretty damn close and you're also finding yourself in challenging situations, ask yourself why. Does someone believe in me? As a manager, does someone think that I've got something that can make their life better? That's how this whole thing works. And then what happens, you can support me on this or disagree with it. What happens when people are coming up for promotion or there's an opportunity, they ask the managers, hey, who would make a good sales manager? Who would make a good production manager? Who would make a good, regional manager in mortgage? Like they ask those questions of the people at that position or above that position. So like your boss might promote, like they say, hey, whenever I have a problem, I stick Frank in there. I think he should be promoted. I think he should be considered for this. That happened a lot in my career.
So number 4 is, who is your sponsor?
Yep.
You have to have a sponsor, period. And I'll share an example of this. And right now we are talking to venture capital firms, Frank, and we're trying to raise $10 million for our startup, our tech startup. And what I've learned about venture capital is you meet with 6 or 7 people, but unless you get one partner to put their name on the deal, you don't get the money. There's always one person who is going to be the sponsor who says, we should do this deal. And they are willing to bet that money on their career on you. It's not a group. There's got to be one person who is out there on the limb. And that's kind of how it is in business when you're trying to get a promotion. Obviously, the higher up your sponsor is, the better, right? If your uncle is the CEO and you're trying to get, like, you're going to get the promotion, that's just the way it's going to be. But normally it's going to be your manager, and you need to know your manager is going to advocate for you. So the first management job I got, my manager was absolutely my sponsor, and he was well liked and well thought of in the company. That was a perfect situation for me. But I also got a promotion, a much bigger one, to a general manager job later on, where the president of our business saw me present at a meeting, liked my energy, liked what I did, talked to me for just a little bit afterward, and went and told a few people you should put him in a bigger job. And it was that was a different sponsor. That was a kingmaker. That was skip 3 levels of the organization with a guy I'd never met. I just happened to kill it in one meeting. And he was like, promote that guy. That's rare. The other one, the first one I talked about, where my manager, who had seen me in work for 3 years, advocated to everyone, sold everyone that I should be in that role. That's normally what it is, but you need to know who is going to sponsor you.
I think you said that very well.
Thanks, Frank.
It happens every once in a while. So I've had it happen both ways, where it's an immediate manager and it's somebody else. What I'll tell you is this. I was in a meeting with Rainer, and I was like 23. And I just graduated college, and I was kind of being quiet. And there was a moment where it's like, okay,
Rainer was a top 5 executive in a publicly traded company,
like 6 levels above,
very
7 levels ahead, 6-7 levels ahead of me.
Yeah.
And they said something, and I was like, well, in my experience, which I know isn't very vast, I've kind of seen, and I went into an explanation. I was humble about it, but what it did is it showed I had a different level of thinking. And I had the confidence to speak in front of somebody who would intimidate a group pretty easily. And I kind of got my point out. And I remember, like, they went around the room further, and he came up and he like called me out, and he's like, hey, let's talk a little bit more about that idea. And a couple of things happened. I had a degree in construction management, and I went to a company that hired like English majors and business majors to build houses. I had an advantage. So I set myself up because I picked the right job. And then I was prepared. I had done my work. I had done my homework. And when I was in this meeting with him, like, I had gone through the trainings, and I paid attention, and I like memorized a bunch of things that I thought would be helpful. And I took what I knew from my baseline experience, and I made it relevant to what the company was promoting. And then when I spoke about it, I stood out because it had depth. So you never know when these moments are going to happen. Ian's moment happened in a meeting where someone came and sat and talked to him, and they're like, promote this guy. For me, it was just a regular meeting, but I had done the work and I was prepared. And someone who was very high up heard something, liked it, and they're like, we got to do more with that guy. These are those moments. Like, don't shy away from those moments if you want to move. The opposite is, don't fake it. If you don't know what you're saying, like, especially to somebody like that, they're going to smell bullshit fast. So like, you got to have the ability to talk competently. It can be a very small window, but inside of that window, speak competently and with depth.
So I think there's commonalities in what we just both said, though. I think the commonality in this is that in both cases, Frank and I were not afraid to speak in front of a group, to raise our hand and to share ideas. So mine happened to be on a big stage in front of a big group of people, a couple hundred people, where this president saw me and said, that guy has something that I really like. He's energetic. He has good ideas. Frank was in a meeting where a president was there, and a lot of people clam up in a meeting with a top 5 executive, and they don't share new ideas, different ideas. Frank put himself on a radar, and I did the same. You have to be willing to put yourself out there in forums that might be uncomfortable. And in both cases, we took risks. That's a risk to speak in front of a president. In both cases, we took risks. I could have bombed that presentation, and that guy could have said, who is that dip? And maybe a kingmaker can promote you, and they can also say off with your head. And
that's right.
There's a little risk in doing some of this, and you don't move up in an organization if you don't take risk. And I would say it's not just the sponsor. If you want a promotion, you have to know who all of the decision makers are. And are you on all of their radar? So let's say you want to be, let's say you want to work your way up to where you are a sales manager. Who's going to make the decision? You're going to report to someone that's going to be a decision maker. They report to someone that's your skip level boss. That person almost always has a say. But then you might be representing different departments that you're selling for. Those department heads might have a say in who their sales manager is going to be. They might go talk to a few people on your team. You have to know when this decision gets made, and your sponsor can help you with this. If you have a good sponsor, they can tell you, well, here's who's going to be involved in the decision making. And then you have to go out and make sure this is just like a sales process, right? If you're trying to go sell an expensive business to business product or service, you got to know all the decision makers. Who are all the constituents? It could be a finance guy involved. It could be a technical guy involved. It could be an operator. Who's making the decision? And am I good with all of them? Which one of them is going to say, no, Ian Mathews doesn't deserve this promotion? And then what do I got to go do so that when they do get asked, I've changed their mind, that they think something different? And do all of those decision makers know that you even aspire to be promoted? Do they even think you want the job? And if you can't answer that, don't assume it, because that means a lot to decision makers. Just knowing that you really want it. I've been on a lot of panels before where someone says, I don't think they want to be a manager. I think they just want more money. And if that's the way everyone thinks, you're not going to get the next job.
Yeah, your hat isn't even in the ring. So if it's not in the ring, there's no way you're going to get promoted. You're going to get considered for it. I don't know. I think we've done a good enough job on that. Let's move on.
So are you doing aspects of the next job already? This one is important to me. I've always said this to folks who have told me that they wanted to get a promotion is if all you really want is the money and the title, start doing the job, start doing lots of aspects of the job. Because one thing that holds back a lot of people from getting a promotion is a lack of experience. So people will say, let's just say managing people. How can we promote you if you've never managed people before? Right? That's a common thing that's out there. Well, start leading your peers. Let's say you're a project manager and the company just hired a green, wet behind the ears new project manager who's got to learn the business, maybe right out of college. Raise your hand and ask your manager, can I mentor this guy? Can I mentor this new guy who just started? I want to take him under my wing. I want to teach him the business. I want to help you take some work off of your plate, and I want to teach this guy the business. That's doing the next job before you have the title. That's doing it. And so then when you get interviewed and they say, well, you've never managed people before, you can say, it's not technically true. I was on the interview panel for the last 2 project managers hired. I onboarded them. If you ask them who taught them the business, they're going to say me. If you ask them who they go to for questions when they're stuck, they say me. Isn't that what a manager does? Now you can say, okay, I've never had the title. I've never formally been called manager, but I've been doing all the aspects of that job before anyone ever gave me the title.
So I remember I interviewed for a job multiple times. I interviewed to become a sales manager. And the first time I didn't get it, they promoted someone else. And then, so I went back to my model. And then they interviewed me a second time for sales manager. And instead of making me a sales manager, they made me a production manager, which is manager of construction. So technically, I didn't get it a second time because they did promote someone from that group, but I wasn't the one they promoted. And I remember being really pissed off about both of those interviews. And I remember thinking, damn it, I was prepared. I was ready. I did all the work. I should have gotten the job. But years later, decades later, I look back and I was really not prepared. And what I like as an example, I remember I was talking to, talking to Paul Mock, and he asked me he was a division manager, right? And it was a sales manager for him. And what I ultimately answered the question was like, what had I done to lead the group in my current role? And I had rolled out like this one thing on like how people could fix their credit. It was weak. It was one answer. The next time I came back to interview, I had a couple of answers. The third time I interviewed for that job, I fucking won it and I crushed it. And instead of having 1 or 2 shitty answers, I had some insanely good answers. I had done this and I had done this and I had built this person up and I had done this job. And through these people, I've been able to accomplish these things. And it was like, instead of having like 1 or 2 half-assed things, I had a real resume of accomplishments and of leading and of doing.
Yeah.
And I can be honest, I could have done the job the first time. I know I would have grinded through it, but I lost to two women who were better than me at that job. They were better. They had been in the roles a lot longer, and they've gone on to really incredible sales careers. One of them was like a regional sales manager for a builder up in Northern Virginia. Now, if I said her name, you know exactly who it is. She kicked my ass because she was better. And what I had to be honest about is I was weak. I wasn't good enough. I did not have enough stuff. So I had to go back. I had to work. I had to be focused on helping the company and focus on developing myself. So when I was in that room the next time, it wasn't crickets. It was like, yeah, this guy's ready.
I love it. So this next one goes along with the last question of, are you doing aspects of the next job already? So the other question I would ask you to think about is, what will my peers say when I am announced in the role? When they promote me into this role, will my peers say, of course, or what took them so long? Or will they say, that's bullshit? That's just political, right? And if it's the latter, you've been doing all the networking and finding out who the decision makers are without putting in the work and being a good teammate in the meantime. And I've got a really good story on this. So, Frankie, I had a closing supervisor, which was not the most high paying job in the company at MBR, but she was in one branch and she was really good at it. She had 6 closers. She was in the biggest branch, and she had developed all 6 of her closers herself from the ground up. We'd hired them out of college and she would just teach them closing, which people before that had told me it was impossible. This takes decades to learn the closer job. It's so detail oriented and checklists, and it's really hard, blah, 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 right? And this supervisor went and developed 6 kids right out of college, taught them how to be closers, and many of them got promoted into other things. So good she was at building all of that was a Yoda comment, so good she was in building her materials, that we asked her to start doing training for closers that were hired from around the company. And it got to a place, her name is Kim. Kim would teach a closer class every quarter for NVR Mortgage for 3 years. All the new closers that were hired the last 3 months would come to Fairfax, and they would spend 2 days with Kim McDermott, and she would teach closers how to teach. And she built a binder. And by the way, she did all of this without asking for a dime. She wasn't like, this is bull. In fact, she loved it because she liked to teach, and it broke up her day-to-day job. She could go, she kind of went and did it. And I respected it because I did a lot of this kind of stuff. I went and did these, extra trainings and I did all of that. And I never asked for money. So I'm telling the story because 3 years later, I get into a senior vice president role. I'm now running the mortgage operation, and I made a decision to centralize our closing. No longer were we going to have, a handful of closers in every office because it was hard. You would lose a closer and you'd be screwed. We decided we were going to put all 80 of them in Pittsburgh. And when the time came for that, I went to Kim and I said, Kim, what do you think about building a centralized closing department all in Pittsburgh with all Pittsburgh closers? You teach them all. And she was a little intimidated because it was a huge promotion, big chunk, big up in pay, but, went from a supervisor to a director, skipped a couple of levels, and she took it. When we announced it, I got more emails than I've ever gotten in my life from a promotion. I must have got 40, 45 emails from closers all around the company saying, you nailed this. She deserves that. She's perfect for that job. And Frankie, it's because she was doing the job before I gave her the title, and she was doing it in a way that people respected her. So when she was announced, it was the most obvious promotion I ever made. Everyone was so happy that she got the job.
So I hear 2 different things there. The point of this one is, what are your peers going to say about you, right? Like, heard. She did a great job. She worked above and beyond. She treated people the right way. She trained them. She cared about them. She probably wrote thank you cards. She probably followed up with them. This is before text messages. She probably stayed in touch with these people. She became part of their lives. She was authentic, right? So she was super, super, super into it, super authentic. And because of that, she didn't just get people who liked her. She got raving fans, which is a big thing, right? But there's another side of it that we didn't talk about here, and it's kind of off topic, but I'm going to say it anyways. Ian was in a big role. He knew he had somebody who cared, who was competent, who trained, who was really good at these things. And ultimately, Ian's responsibilities report directly to the CEO. CEO is real fucking high strung. He's he just is. That's what CEOs are. But Ian handpicked someone who he knew he could trust and put him in this really big role, because he knew that what the role wasn't too big for the person, even though the person might have thought that it was too big for them. But that is how these things happen. So I'll use an obscure kind of thing that's kind of off track, but it makes sense. They talk about football coaches in their coaching trees. Like, this happens all the time. And what they do is like you look and you're just like, okay, how did this new person, this new coach assemble their staff? And what you see is these people have all worked or played together. They always hire people. Like, I was on a staff with him 8 years ago. And although he was only at this low level rung here, this person has the competency to do this job. When you become the man or the woman and you're running the department, what you pick and choose is people who you know you can trust, people you know you can rely on, people who speak the same language for you or as you. So we talked about it kind of early on about having a sponsor. If you promote people and you do a good job underneath someone else's reign, when that person moves up, they're going to bring you with them. And that's kind of like the coaching tree. And that's what Ian did with this woman who went to Pittsburgh.
So I love this. And I'm going to stay on it for just one more minute, Frank, because it sparked something. The CEO you're talking about, who was high strung, I first had to sell him on centralizing the closing department because it could have been a major disruption to the company. We had to do it in phases. People could have panicked and all left, and we could have been in a lot of trouble. It took us 18 months to go centralize everything. So once I sold him on that, which was a big enough risk, then he wasn't sold on, I had to go to him and say, this person is a closing supervisor. They're going to skip about 3 rungs up the level, and they're going to be able to go from managing 6 to 80 with complexity of having 5 supervisors report to them and 80 closers. And they're going from having Northern Virginia to the whole company responsibility. He was very dubious about this, very skeptical, because he didn't know Kim. And he wanted me to go to a bank and find someone who had run a centralized closing department before. Why wouldn't you just go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo where they do this already, find someone who's running a region of 200 closers and have them stand it up? And I fought very hard against that because I said, I don't believe in the cultures of big banks. I don't believe in the way they're run. I know this person. I know that she will struggle at first and she will figure it out. I believe in her. I trust her. And I think there is much less risk in her growing in this role than going outside to a bank and finding someone that just because they ran a closing department, they're going to bring all the nonsense from the bank over here. And I fought and I put my name on it. So I was a sponsor and I was willing to go out on a limb for her. And she earned that with me over years of getting results. I knew what she was capable of and I knew how scalable she was.
Yep. And how often did you worry about it? Like, how often did you think, man, I might have made the wrong choice?
Zero.
Never. Because
Zero.
you had, this is the reason why the guy who was at, he was the, so this is another kind of nuanced example. Sean McVay just won the Super Bowl. He's one of the youngest coaches in football. He was like the very bottom rung at the Buccaneers when they won a Super Bowl, and he was plucked multiple times. People said, this person's young, they're inexperienced, but they can do more because they've proven that they were doing more in a lowly role. They were already doing more. So that person then jumped several rungs, and they went from like a low level assistant to like the head coach of a team in Los Angeles. Like, there's no more high profile. That person leapfrogged several times because they did so much more than they were asked to do in the role. And that demonstrates to others, like, Ian can get behind that, because if it didn't work out and it failed, but this woman had done several things so well, you can defend that as a manager. Okay, wrong fit. She didn't like Pittsburgh. But these are the reasons. Ian had really strong reasons and logic for making the move, because Ian also gets a paycheck. He is also employed. He can get fired. So that's the thing you have to realize. This is like a full 360 type of economy going on, where there's parts of it, but those are the steps. And if you can get people behind you and get a groundswell, it makes a ton.
And look,
a ton of difference.
I've never been fired for a company, but I always thought if I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get fired. This is the reason. I'm going to get fired with people I know and I trust, and not people from outside this company that I'm guessing on based on a 1 hour interview and a background check.
Yeah.
100%. Give me the person I've spent thousands of hours with all day. So last couple of things we're going to talk about. If you're going for that promotion, there's a good chance there are skills needed that maybe you haven't done in a previous job, because of the promotion, it's a stretch, you're getting moved up. And what I would suggest doing, talk to the hiring manager, talk to other people that are in that job that you aspire to get promoted into, and find out what their day-to-day activities are and what their strengths need to be in that job. And then look for parallels that bridge the gap. And I'll just give an example. Let's say that Frank's regional production job. Let's say Frank went and talked to someone who was in that job, and they said, look, big part of my job is finding creative ways to make life easier on all the project managers, right? Okay, well, Frank maybe hadn't done that before in that job, but he could say, I've done that for my manager before. Let me give you 3 ideas that I brought to my construction manager that helped all of my peers do their job a little more efficiently. So you want to find things that are in the next job that you are doing similar things in your job, even if you haven't done it exactly. Similar to the example of onboarding a new employee, right? You weren't their manager, but you helped do it. Me going and hiring interns. They didn't really report to me. I didn't have the title, but I went and interviewed. I picked talent. I onboarded them. I motivated them, and I got results out of them. And I did that in a sales rep position while I was still commissioned, but I was able to bridge the gap to being a manager. When people said, hey, you've never been a manager before, why would we promote you? I could say I've done some of it. And the other piece I would say is you're going to get hit with that before. It's this chicken or the egg of, I can't promote you because you don't have the experience. And you're saying, but I can't get the experience if you won't promote me. And what I love to do in an interview in that position, and I've done this before, is say, were you born a manager? Were you born into that job? Or did someone take a chance on you once? And why did they take a chance? And was that, it looks to me like that chance worked out pretty well for the company because now you're in a much higher job. I did that in my first management interview. When I got challenged by an executive that you've never managed people, I asked him flat out, who took a chance on you? Did you have to wait until you were 50 years old before someone gave you a management job? And it was like, no, I was pretty young. Okay, well, I'm asking you to take a chance on me. You either see something in me or you don't, but don't tell me I can't be promoted because I don't have the experience. At some point, someone's got to believe in me that I can learn those experiences and grow into this role.
So I'm going to answer this in a slightly different way. Using parallel skills experiences bridge the gap to the next job. So going all the way back, right? I worked with my dad. I worked as a busboy at the Outback. I got promoted to a waiter. I got promoted to a head wait. I got promoted to a bartender. I left college. I started off in the bottom rung at Ryan Homes, and I moved my way up. And what I remember, and I talked about, is that I felt like I didn't know what I was doing in every single job. And then within a couple of months, I felt like I had gotten proficient. But every time I got promoted to the new job, I no longer felt proficient. I felt like an idiot. Like I felt like I don't belong here. I have imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough to do this job. And it happened to me enough times by the time I was in my low 20s that when I finally started my actual career, not just working in restaurants, what I realized was this: I come with inherent strengths, but I come with inherent weaknesses. And everybody else comes with inherent strengths and inherent weaknesses too. And what is going to define me is my ability to be honest about it. And this is what I did. Anytime I found myself in a new role, and this could be your first job, is understand where you're strong, be honest, don't be cocky, and understand where you're weak. And when you start a new job, you're going to be weak in almost everything, right? The one thing you can do is kind of just work hard and listen and take notes. And what I did is I found 2 to 4 people who were really good at the things I stunk at. And I would go up to them and I would say, hey, I've asked around, you're the best at this. Wouldn't you agree? And they would say, yeah, I'm pretty good at that. Like, can I tag along? I won't make your life worse. Like, I want to learn how to do a frame check. And I was told you used to frame. You're really good at this. Can I come with you? Whenever you're going to do it, I don't care. If it's 6 a.m, if it's Saturday, I'll show up. And what you do is you do these things, and then you take things that are weaknesses, and you might not be able to turn them into strengths, but you can neutralize them into weaknesses. You can at least be decent at them. Maybe you can turn a couple of them into strengths. And then what you do is you get good at the job. You say thank you to that person. You become proficient. You get promoted. At your next stop, you say, okay, here are the things I'm bringing with me that I'm already pretty good at, but here are the 3 or 4 things I suck at. Who are the experts? And you do this at every rung. And what I have noticed is this. That's a process. That's a system. That's a problem-solving method.
Yeah.
If you have that, you are not going to lose in an interview. Because you're going to say, I've been in 7 jobs since I was a kid, and I stunk at all of them when I started, and this is my process. When I had figured out that recipe, I never lost an interview again, because that's what made me great. And if you can kind of figure that out in yours, like, hey, I'm going to get there, and I'm not going to be awesome because I'm going to be brand new, but I'm going to know it. But I have all of these learning experiences that I can build off of, and this is the method. I'm going to ask who's the best, and I'm going to go say, can I spend some time with you? And I'm going to get good at it quickly. Like, that is a winning formula that gets, like, it instills confidence in whoever's promoting you, and it gives you an ability to very quickly move up the rungs.
I think I'm just going to finish with one last question you've got to ask yourself a lot of times with promotion is, how easy is it to replace me? And a lot of times your ego gets involved. You love to think this company couldn't do it without me. But that actually will hold you back a lot of times. Especially if you're a manager and you want to work your way up the executive ranks, you would better be able to go to them and say, look, if you promote me, these 2 people could do my job tomorrow. And here's why. I've been developing them for 2 years. Here are the stretch assignments I've given them. Here are the things that I delegate to them regularly that are really technically part of my job responsibilities. I would be very confident in one of these individuals stepping right into my job. That is so powerful versus, let's say you're competing with someone else who's going for this job. And that person is like, well, we're going to have to go outside and look for someone. Versus you saying what I just said, who's getting the job, Frankie? If it's close, if it's like for like, you and this other person, one doesn't have a succession plan. You have a great tree, like you said, a coaching tree that you can go pluck right away. What's the less risky pick for the company? It's promoting you because they got someone to slide right into your job.
You've already acted as if. There's an awesome line in Boiler Room where they're like, if you don't know, act as if. And they're basically telling you in Boiler Room to commit fraud. We're not telling you to do that here. We're telling you to act as if you're a manager before the time comes for you to be the manager. Act as if you're in that next role before that time comes. And I'll close it with this. We have someone that works with us here, highly decorated, won a big award. And he told his manager, I want to win that award next year. And his manager told him, I don't think that's a great goal. I think your goal now that you're a manager is that someone that works for you should win that award.
Awesome advice.
That is awesome advice.
Awesome advice. Yeah. Once you get to a manager, it's not about you anymore. It's about your accolades from now on is someone on your team won that award because
That's
you
it.
developed them, and that makes you look good as a leader of people, which is your new job.
That's it.
Is there any chance that I could win an award at the next Cava Company's retreat as the CEO of Let Me Speak to a Manager? Is there any chance, Frank? Could you give me an award?
I think we give you an award, but it might have something to do with like rubber dongs flown in from Hong Kong.
You're mean-spirited. I'm a hell of a CEO. I am very excited about this. If you guys would like to write me and congratulate me on my new promotion after this episode, I'm happy to do that. If you know someone who is interested in a promotion, share this episode with them and don't forget to follow. And if this gave you any value, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Frankie, good seeing you, dude.
You're always a self-promoter, my brother.
See you, man.
See ya.